Welcome back into the Dick Hanna Dealerships Postgame Scoreboard show. On the phone with us now is Dusty Harrah, sideline reporter for the Oregon Ducks, as well as the fan man himself here at 105.1 and 1080 The Fan. First and foremost, Dusty, I shot you a text when you were doing your postgame show interviews. A recovery lift for Bryce Betcher tomorrow? Straight psycho behavior.
Yeah, that is how he operates. That's how all of them operate.
The luxuries of being a D1 linebacker, huh? Oh, I'm just going to get a nice little recovery lift tomorrow.
Little recovery lift after getting home, probably around like 3 a.m.
Yeah, no biggie, no biggie.
Get a couple hours of sleep, and then you're back at it. You watch film, you get a recovery lift, and beat your body even more. I mean, that's how you get ready for the next week.
As I always like to say, man, from the sideline view, what you were seeing and what you were hearing on the sideline, what's your takeaways from this game? Obviously, just a dominant performance in all phases of the game, but what did you notice that you think was maybe different this week as opposed to maybe other games where they're playing an opponent that is just not at the same quality as them, or times that Oregon has been in this position after a tough loss where they have to bounce back?
Yeah, I think that what we've seen is that this team handles its business against the inferior opponents, and that was no different. I do feel like there was a point that they were trying to prove tonight, and the message was clear that they weren't going to back down. Everything that everybody had kind of written off this Oregon team after the Indiana loss, they were trying to send a message that they're still here, and they're still just as good as they were on Friday of last week before that Indiana game. And, you know, how many times have we seen teams get beat by the same opponent twice this year? I mean, it's happened time and time again, and I think they answered that, and they kind of saw and, you know, had the luxury of not being one of the first ones to lose, right? But making sure that, you know, they saw other teams fall across the country, and they knew that you got to tighten things up when you're coming off a loss. And we saw that, especially up front. I thought on both lines of scrimmage, they were really good. And for as bad as Rutgers is from a win-loss record, that was the first time that they've trailed at the half all year long. And we're just trailing. It was 42-3. And those 3 points came off of the Gary Bryant fumble on the opening drive where they didn't move the ball a yard. So, you know, that was impressive, to say the least, to come out against a team that is very well coached under Greg Schiano and really prides themselves on playing tight in the first half.
Yeah, Dusty, I want to kind of address what you talked about there. Oregon really making a point and trying to show the nation what they're really about today. The offense, I think you heard, just the 4th time in program history that they've gone over 700 yards. They haven't done this in a decade. It's just crazy stats. This was NCAA football like today, and it's the first time we've seen this under Dan Lanning. You saw Will Stein just breaking out the playbook today, and that's kind of what I wanted to ask about as far as the point that Oregon was making. Man, the flea flicker, just different directions that the offense was going. They went deep into the playbook today. I frankly didn't expect that, and I just want to clarify, that was not because they needed to. Will Stein was showing everybody what he could do, right?
Yeah, and we've seen those wrinkles and twists in games this season, but I feel like the BU nature of a play caller, which is you always stick to who you are and you don't go away from what is working and kind of get caught in the moment. I think that was Will Stein showing that, you know, this is who he is as a play caller. I think we saw a lot more tempo tonight, and tempo really worked against Indiana. And look, Rutgers was trying to do a lot of the same things that Indiana did against Oregon. They were given a lot of those simulated pressures where there was 6-7 guys up on the line of scrimmage, all looking like they're coming, and trying to confuse the offensive line and Dante Moore. I think it showed how hard it is to do what Indiana did successfully, which is not just show those simulated pressures, but, you know, be effective in them and have no breaks at all. Because when you simulate the pressure and you have all those guys up at the line of scrimmage, the really hard part is everybody's got to get back in where they're supposed to be and in the right spot. And Indiana did that to great success last week. But Oregon's offensive line, Dante Moore, they looked far more comfortable with handling that simulated pressure. And we saw against Indiana, a little bit of tempo went a long way because you can't give as many of the exotic looks against tempo. You've got to get back up, and you can't show one thing and then do another because you don't have the time to show anything. So when the simulated pressure came, the tempo came for Oregon, and they looked a lot more comfortable attacking that.
When you look at the game log for Rutgers quarterback Ethan Kaliakmanis, he does not have a game where he has thrown for any less than 249 yards. He's got 3 games where he threw for over 300, but every game 252, 259, 309. And then now you just have this staggering outlier, an 8 for 25 game for 79 yards. What did Oregon do defensively to make this such a poor performance on his end? Do you think it was at the line of scrimmage? Was it just the secondary just absolutely having shackles, or do you think just combined effort all around?
Well, they got 2 really big receivers on the outside. They go 6'4" and 6'6" on the outside, and 50-50 balls, jump balls are part of their offense. And we saw that on the opening drive,
right,
after the Gary Bryant fumble, where 2 of their 3 plays, they went deep shot, got broken up because Brandon Finney is 6'4" himself on the outside. And then they went to the 10-yard timing out, which Indiana had great success with, and that didn't work. And then they went to a jump ball again. Where Oregon made a big difference this week is almost exclusively press coverage on the outside by the corners. And we saw the corners playing off a little bit last week. Well, they came up and they were in the kitchen of the wide receivers. They did a really good job of being in press coverage, and that's not always given a jam. That's a false jam sometimes, where you're up and you're at the line of scrimmage, but you're giving the receiver a release and you're just going to run with them. And they mixed up their techniques on how they were attacking, whether it was inside or outside arm, and then or no arm at all, where the receivers are looking for a rip or to make contact, and they have nowhere to rip or make contact too. So receivers kind of stumbling out of the blocks. It was all in the secondary, and I think they did a really good job on the perimeter. Those receivers are good. You mentioned the quarterback. They put up yards through the air. They averaged, 309 per game this season through the air. And Oregon made it a priority that they were going to shut down the receivers on the outside. Anything that they were going to get was going to be underneath. And to the defensive line's credit, the sack numbers may not be huge, but the pressure was relentless. And when you're able to get home and you're able to lock up on the outside and don't have the ability to throw those jump balls, you get a performance like we saw tonight. I thought the defense was really good tonight.
Dusty, not a blemish-free game for Oregon. 4 penalties for 50 yards. One of those was a holding call that for the offensive line that, despite a first down, kind of put a key. It didn't ruin a drive, but it slowed it down a little bit going into the red zone for Oregon for one of their touchdowns. That, as well as 3 turnovers. You can't beat better teams than Rutgers when that kind of stuff happens. Is that just like miscommunications? Is that something maybe that Oregon actually is more concerned about? Or is that something that fans just shouldn't really pay much attention to because no team's going to play a perfect game? I don't know what to make of that. I'm nervous about that kind of stuff, but I don't know.
Yeah, obviously it's never good to turn the ball over. And if you look at the turnovers that happened, Gary Bryant Jr., I thought he did a good job of securing the football. It was to his side. He had his 5 points of contact. It was just the defensive back literally put his helmet on the football when he tackled him, and the ball came flying out. Like that, I'm going to chalk that up more to being a fluke because he wasn't loose with the ball.
Okay.
It wasn't like he was doing anything weird. Then you have one of your other turnovers is Decorian Moore, your backup true freshman punt returner, misread that ball. He had a late fair catch call, got to the ball late, and one of the biggest differences between high school punters and college punters is that when that ball gets up in the air, it starts tailing on you, and you really have to move with that tail and play it. And it took off and kind of turned on him at the last second. Don't like it. But again, he wasn't your primary punt returner, and you're getting him in there to get some reps. And that one is more ugly than the Gary Bryant fumble, that's for sure. And then the interception that Dante Moore threw, I don't know what happened there. It looked like the receiver maybe sat when Dante was expecting him to break in more. The defensive back jumped it regardless. That's an interception that obviously they're going to go back to, and they're going to want to clean that one up. But I don't know. I wouldn't be too alarmed by the turnovers because they weren't like last week's, right? None of them, you're not repeating the same issues over and over again. When you start repeating the issues, then that becomes a problem. And Coach Lanning said this, this week in the weekly press conference that, sometimes it was the receiver not running the right route last week, and that led to some of the miscues and misfires offensively with Dante and his receivers in running those option routes. I don't know if that was one of them, and I don't know who was right and who was wrong in the Dante Moore interception, but you never like to see those. And I get the frustrations with that, but I also saw a team win by 46 points, and that was pretty good.
Yeah, and look dominant doing it. I know you got a plane to catch. If you can, stop by the Bada Bing before you head out. Get some gabagool, and we'll see you back on the West Coast here on Monday.
I'll tell you what, the pregame, the entrance for Rutgers, is elite. It is elite. They have a knight ride in on a horse, and then the lights turn out and it's red, and this horse comes riding out on the field, and then you hear the Sopranos theme start playing, and that's what the team comes out to. Elite by Rutgers.
Yeah, it's unfortunate it's like for Rutgers because, they're not obviously like a powerhouse, but man, if they get to a point, maybe they have an Indiana-like run in 10, 15 years, and that intro will just be 10 times better.
Yeah. It was. I mentioned on the broadcast that they played "Don't Stop Believin'" in between the third and fourth quarter.
Yeah, I heard that.
And then just shut off the lights.
Yeah, that was a tough one because I think a lot of the fans had already left the stadium by then.
Yeah, at some point you can stop believing.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Dusty. Safe travels, and we will catch you on Monday, man.
All right, fellas. Have a good one.
You too. All right, that was Dusty Harrah, sideline reporter for the Ducks and the Fan brand manager running things here over at the Fan Sports Network. Going to take a quick break. We'll get to some of your thoughts on the text line. You can share your thoughts on the text line, 503-864-6326, or on the YouTube chat. We are going to come right back after this weather update by Jordan Schultz.
Appreciate you, Joe. 56 right now in Portland. The Ducks postgame forecast calls for a low of 44 tomorrow. Rainy and a high of 60. 56 when Oregon hosts Wisconsin next weekend.
Dick Hanna Dealerships presents the Postgame Scoreboard Show on the Fan Sports Network. Dick Hanna, believe in nice.
And Dante back to throw off little play action. Wants to go deep. Down the middle is got it! Diving catch, Sadiq, touchdown Oregon. Perfect throw, great stretch, reach, grab, into the end zone, touchdown Ducks.
Time for the second half. Oregon Ducks football on the Fan is brought to you by Coors Light, Dick Hanna Dealerships, Philbrook Law, Zoom Care, Bellagio's Pizza, Langdon Farms Golf Club, Wilsonville Toyota, Mountaintop Metal Roofing, Victor Rico's Mexican Food, Legends Casino Hotel, Mott's PDX, and Laurelhurst Market Steakhouse and Butcher Shop. The Dick Hanna Dealerships post-game scoreboard show on the Fan Sports Network, 105.1, 1080, and the Odyssey app. Drives on. Here's your hosts, Joe Fisher and Jordan Schultz.
Welcome back into the Dick Hanna Dealership post-game scoreboard show. Getting to some of your thoughts, text messages that we're getting on the fan text line, 503-864-6326, or on the YouTube chat. One of the messages on YouTube that I see, where are all the Firestein trolls this time?
Yeah, they disappeared.
Great point, Paul. That is a great point. A lot less of those messages now. In fact, none at all. And that was one thing that initially I was getting a little nervous, and then it just seemed to completely flip on a dime where they opened up the playbook, let Dante look downfield. You had that double reverse flea flicker. It's really nice when you're able to run the ball too. That's for sure. So as far as a statement game, not just for this team, but just for Will Stein as an offensive coordinator, I think he definitely wanted to prove something and stuck to his game plan, and it worked magnificently. And when Dante had his chances, had his throws, he took them and he connected on them. Some awesome throws, awesome touchdown passes. Two of them to Kenyon Sadiq, one of them to Decorian Moore, and then a shorter pass to Noah Winnington. Had a 3-touchdown game. Props to Noah Winnington. A nice little bounce back game for him as well. But yeah, that was one of the best things I think of this game was the offense just bouncing back and having the performance that they did, and Will Stein being obviously the catalyst to that with his play calling.
Well, not only did Will Stein do great with the playbook tonight, or great work with the playbook, but Oregon I mean, they did traditionally what you're supposed to do to succeed in football and offense, right? You set it up with the run, and then you can pass over the top. Oregon literally came out of the gates flying. Noah Whittington with that first long touchdown established right off the bat that you're not going to be able to predict on defense for Rutgers what Oregon's going to do. And they didn't have quite even numbers. The rush killed. I mean, it dwarfed it by 80 yards as far as 415 rush to 335 passing, but they did whatever they want. That is because Oregon was so good at establishing the run. And on the other side of things, it's why Rutgers wasn't able to get the ball in the air at all. They could not run the ball at all. Traditionally, are they great at it? Well, they've got some skill because if you can pass, that means you can run a little bit. But credit to Oregon's defense. Yeah, both sides today, Joe. They just looked like a shutdown team. Now, is Rutgers amazing? No. But hey, well-fought game by Oregon. And as we were talking about, Joe, a major get-right game that they needed.
Yeah, one of the messages on YouTube that we see right now, O-line is fixed. O-line wasn't most of the problem. The confusion was unfortunately coming from Adante, but another great point is that after what we saw last week with the offensive line, I thought this was a get-right game for them. I mean, a get-right game from everybody, but that offensive line had something to prove too, and Dusty said it during the postgame show on the Learfield broadcast, is that, you know, Poncho, the center for the Oregon Ducks, he took this game a little personally. And he wanted to. I know that they heard all the clamoring about not just the offensive play, but the offensive line play. And so seeing what we saw out of the offensive line today on that first big touchdown run, just the blocking on the outside, the blocking downfield, which is something that we started the season seeing really well with the Oregon Ducks. Just tip of the cap to the offensive line. Now, the thing is as Dusty said about the turnovers, is that you don't want to see this happen, you know, week after week and have it become a trend. The offensive line put some of these games together now where you can go back and show that this is one of the best units, not just on this team in the conference, but in the nation, just offensive line wise.
Well, they need to actually show what statistics and analytics say about them. I think, according to College Football Focus, that they're the second-ranked offensive line in the country. Like, they have a high standard to live up to, but, man, last week at Indiana, Joe, it's an eye test, but they just looked listless. Like, they did not, I key in on Alex Harkey's second holding call. And I think I said this last week on the postgame show, as soon as he did that, he's just like, F it all. They just didn't look focused. And that was totally different this week. You could see the fire in their bellies. And I saw specifically an offensive line. Yeah, they came out with something to prove, and they did today, man. They handled whatever Rutgers threw at them, because Rutgers did try to copy Indiana a little bit, give a certain look, you know, when Dante Moore's doing his cadence. And then as soon as the ball snapped, they change into a blitz. They change into a cover four. So it happened today, but the line and Dante Moore handled it well.
Another message here. I just want to see Oregon end up number 5 through number 8 and get a playoff game at Autzen, please. I feel like I saw a tweet out there today during the game. It was like, maybe Oregon sold during that game in Indiana and lost on purpose so that way they can host a playoff game. I love the tin hat foil theory there.
Yeah.
The tin foil hat theory there, that Oregon lost on purpose so that way they could host a college football playoff game.
I'd still rather the bye, but I like the theory. I like the theory.